welcome to today's webinar, and to all our users around the world, thank you so much for joining today. Apple Remote Desktop, very interesting technology in Remote Desktop Manager, and you'll get to know a lot more today what it entails in Remote Desktop Manager. And to tell you more, we are joined today by a very special guest, Devolutions Chief Technology Officer and resident expert on all things Apple Remote Desktop. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to being with us today.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm really glad to be here today with you to make this presentation on Apple Remote Desktop and to dig into the details of how it differs from standard VNC, but especially how we support Apple Remote Desktop in Remote Desktop Manager.
Yes, it's amongst the over 100 different technologies that we support in RDM, and that's what makes it so powerful, is that there's a little something for everyone. And today that little something will be Apple Remote Desktop, and we hope you'll enjoy all of the things we'll be discussing. So basically, we've had a lot of discussions, Mark, that we've seen on Reddit, on LinkedIn, on a lot of places where people just struggle with the native tools that exist out there. And so we decided, well, let's have a talk about what we've done.
More importantly to that is people don't know about Remote Desktop Manager and its Apple Remote Desktop support. So this is like the biggest comment we see on Reddit and other places. Like, where were you all this time? I was looking for an Apple Remote Desktop client and I never found you. So today we'll make a webinar to discuss our Apple Remote Desktop integration in Remote Desktop Manager and get the word out.
Yeah. So, and with all the technologies, especially, we see a lot of educators, technicians, even though, the Mac ecosystem is less so in IT, there are still a lot of machines that deal with macOS. And so today, it's all about that. So we have a little presentation for you. So beginning here, when you, Nicholas, if you can put over, there we go. So unlocking the full potential here, basically the key takeaways, key features and integration. We're talking about high performance and clear visuals. Cross-platform support, that's something many have struggled over the years.
This is very important. The official Apple Remote Desktop client from Apple only works on macOS. We support all platforms, literally all platforms, Windows, macOS, Linux, Android, iOS, and even a web client, which showcase at the very end.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing as well is that it's available in free and team editions. So there is no additional cost for using Apple Remote Desktop and Remote Desktop Manager and just blowing away their paid client, which is what, Mark, $90?
$90. There are some features of the Apple Remote Desktop client from Apple, which are in the paid tier. Well, we support these features as well, but in the free edition. So if you wanted to not pay that $90, well, we have a solution for you.
Yeah, so completely free and all powerful. I'm excited. So let's moving along here. Benefits, basically you'll see performance with MVS, which we'll go into details here. Flexible web-based access. So this little tease that we made earlier, we'll showcase that today. And again, no additional cost here. It's very important because this client is it's basically very expensive to what it offers for those that have experienced it. So we'll have something very exciting at a much lower cost, which is zero. But we will see that in more details here. And if you're already excited and if you want to start right away, you can go ahead and download the free edition of Remote Desktop Manager if you don't have it already, and try it out right now. You don't have to use the Team Edition. You can just go with the free and have all of the greatest things that we will showcase today.
A lot of the IT professionals that know about this integration, they're using Remote Desktop Manager pretty much as the equivalent of MSTSC and Windows for RDP, but they just use it for the Apple Remote Desktop client. We have a lot more than just an Apple Remote Desktop client, but if the only thing you're interested in is, I just need to connect to a Mac, you can go right away and download RDM free. It's perfectly fine for that type of use case. So just try it out. We're not trying to upsell you into anything, but you might discover things you like and want to learn more about the other things that we offer in Remote Desktop Manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing, if you want to know more right now about Apple Remote Desktop, if you want to follow along with us and see what today's subject will entail, our Integration Center page has one for Apple Remote Desktop with a lot of details. There's even a little preview for the Apple Remote Desktop on the web. So if you want to see all of that, and if you want to go ahead here and be ahead of the curve, it's all available there. But otherwise, we'll jump right in. So Mark, we've talked a lot about this integration and how powerful it is. But what is it, the little thing that makes it tick?
Yes, I will be glad to go into the details of it. So we're talking about how it's so great to have Apple Remote Desktop, but now we're going to dig into why it's so great as opposed to standard VNC. And the biggest difference you have right at the beginning is a very different codec. So yes, you can connect with VNC, but in the case of Apple Remote Desktop, it just begins with, yes, I'm a VNC server, but I'm a macOS VNC server, and then from there, all the messages are completely different. So it's almost an entirely different protocol, except for a few messages at the beginning. But if we talk about codecs, we have here something which is inspired from progressive JPEG. So on your phone, you've probably noticed sometimes you load images, but you get a blurry image for a fraction of a second before the full image is shown. This is progressive JPEG. And what this does is it encodes the image in 2 passes. So a lower quality pass, and then the completion of the quality information is sent as second pass. So you can load the image faster in 2 steps. You have the same thing in the Apple Adaptive Codec. So it always sends the first pass very quickly, and then it can send the second pass, but it can skip it. So if you drag a window around, what the user would rather see is something which is smooth movement of the window, rather than a high quality of the pixels of that window with a very jaggy or non-smooth movement of the window. So here, when you do this and you make these actions, it actually skips sending the second pass, so it can have a higher frame rate with lower quality. So this is a very big difference, which you don't see with the standard VNC codecs that would get if you use a standard VNC client connected to a macOS device. The other things which are important in this case is it uses something like JPEG for sections of the screen that we call tiles, for images and things like that. But if you have a low density or low information squares on the screen, like just black or just a single color or 2 colors, it would use a specific encoding for that. But if you have a lot of repetition in your screen, for instance, all the same color or all the same pattern, it will just encode it as reuse that same tile from the previous tile or elsewhere on the screen. So it does some sort of tile caching in this case, which is very efficient for remote desktop, because in remote desktop, you have a lot of computer-generated images, like applications with lots of repetition, which you wouldn't see in a video, for instance. So the other codec which is supported in the Apple Remote Desktop is the zlib codec. It's actually the same one you would get with standard VNC. So if you have a standard VNC client, you connect to a Mac, you would get only zlib. You would never get the other codec, well, because the client doesn't support it. But there are several variants of it, and even if it's the same codec under the hood, there are some key differences here that make a huge difference for performance. The biggest one is server-side downscaling. So with standard VNC, what happens is you get the full native pixel resolution of the screen. If you have a Retina display, that's a lot of pixels, and they're just sending all of those pixels over the network like that, using the equivalent of zipping the raw pixels and sending them over. The server supports multiple color formats for those. So you can have the raw pixel data and RGB, but you can have it at different color depths, like 16 BPP or even 8 BPP, or a really funny one, you can have like a 1 BPP. So it's very ugly image, but it goes really fast over the network. We're gonna go more into. So let me explain a bit more about why server-side downscaling is so important. When you have a high-density display, there is a difference between the perceived resolution and the native resolution. So what happens is your Mac will try to display graphical elements using more pixels than the points you see in the screen. So you will use more pixels for the same end result, which is why the image is clearer or crisper. The problem is when you go into remote desktop, you probably don't really care about having that much pixels. In fact, it will actually degrade your experience because it will slow down the graphical update sending over the network. So you want to ask the server to downscale to a smaller number of pixels to encode. That will make a huge difference in terms of performance. So for instance, here I just took some numbers from the Mac I have standing here. You can have like a 1536 by 1960, which is a perceived resolution, but the real native resolution of the same display is 2048 by 1280. So that's a lot more pixels. When you connect with standard VNC, you always get the native pixel resolution, so you always get a lot more pixels to encode, which is why it's slower with zlib. Go to the next slide. I made a quick chart here to show the huge difference it makes even before the encoding happens. So server-side downscaling happens before you encode the image. If I go with the full pixel resolution, but just the default one, which was set on this MacBook here, I get something like 23% less pixels to encode. So that's quite a huge advancement right there. I have 23% less to encode before I even start compressing anything. But if I go into higher densities, I can go from 43% fewer pixels to encode, or in the best case scenario, it's almost 57% less pixels. But if you connect again with a standard VNC client, you will get 100% of all those pixels. So that's more than twice as fast. Now, we're going to go into details, but let's try to stay like higher level as possible. When you connect with Apple Remote Desktop, and you can request different color depths, if you want the full color information with zlib, you need to request XRGB. So we'll use 4 bytes per pixel. One might think you don't really need the alpha here. You could use 3 bytes, but they don't make that optimization. So they literally just encode it with the extra byte for the alpha, which is ignored anyway. Otherwise, you can go a little bit down. You can use 16 BPP, which you use 2 bytes per pixel. But the color information is much more degraded. You see it a lot more. Colors can be washed out a little bit more. All modern codecs for images use a form of YUV. YUV is not RGB. It's a different color format in which you have grayscale, the Y, and then 2 color channels, U and V. U and V always change. They have different names, but here you have CB, CR. So they're different chroma values, and this is the one which is used here. The important thing to retain color information is that you want to keep more of the grayscale information and lose more of the color information. By splitting them this way, it's possible to end up with a group of pixels that has more color information than you would have with RGB with 16 BPP. So zlib is not using anything modern. It's something from ancient history, if you think about it in terms of codec. YUV is used by all modern codecs, and you only get it with the adaptive codec right now. So big difference there. Here is a bit more of a detailed explanation about why you would like to go for YUV. And it only makes sense when you think about it in terms of grouping of pixels. So if we think about individual pixels, there isn't that much of a difference between RGB and YUV. But the thing is, when you go with YUV, it's often combined with chroma subsampling. So you take a group of 4 pixels together, and then you keep just an average of the color information for that entire group of 4 pixels. Then you send that over the network, then you reconstruct into individual pixels, but you sent like a quarter of the color information, and you retain 100% of the grayscale information. So your color is less degraded than you would have with RGB. And the reason for that is, in the case of RGB, the grayscale information is actually spread out between R, G, and B on all 3 color channels. So when you convert to YUV, you can concentrate that grayscale information into a single color channel, keep that intact, but degrade the color information in a much better way.
Wow, Mark, that's a lot of great information. I mean, it's exciting. It's amazing, basically, what we've done. And now we'll showcase all of that to you in Remote Desktop Manager. And I just want to add as well a few more things that we will be able to see today and that includes the use of many features that some of you may be familiar with or that you've seen before. The curtain mode, view-only mode as well that we'll see. And perhaps even more important is clipboard synchronization across the board here. So being able to copy text, being able to copy images, if I'm not mistaken, as well.
Yes.
So all of this follows along. So you were giving a comparison to Microsoft Remote Desktop earlier, and that's almost like the Microsoft Remote Desktop client, but for Apple. And I believe you can log in to the system with an account.
Yes, you can. There are some differences, though. Apple Remote Desktop is not as extensive in terms of features as RDP. One of the things you may notice is it still doesn't have sound support. So it's not because we didn't implement it; it's because Apple never did it. But for authentication, to that topic, what you have when you connect to a Mac is more like console access. It's equivalent to giving a user access to see what is going on the screen. And the screen is black right now, so I'm going to wake it up. But basically, it's more like you connect, you can see what's going on, and there is no dark integration between the user you use to authenticate and the user session, which is here. So it's possible to actually connect and see another user session or the login screen. And they don't really have a feature to integrate that login screen directly into the protocol. We have ways to make that less painful, but it's not natively supported by Apple Remote Desktop itself.
I mean, that's amazing still. And now let's have a look at this directly in Remote Desktop Manager. So what we've done today, with all you've discussed, Mark, we'll see that in different entries with different settings. So on our screen here, you'll see Remote Desktop Manager. And so we've got a category for higher resolution, one for low resolution. If we have a look at the higher resolution, but with the adaptive quality, so that's basically having all of the pixels brought over. Actually, I'll show you something even more interesting right now, which is the auto typing function that we have directly in Remote Desktop Manager. So that allows us to type the password in the session directly. So let me start again here. And with the auto typing of the password, we just send the credential over, and then we can just log into the system automatically. So here in the session, we have the scale down resolution, as Mark was saying earlier. And now with the toggle here at the top, which is the smart sizing option, by disabling that, we get the full native pixels.
Well, I just want to add to that. So by default, we have client-side scaling. So we resize the pixels that you see to something which is much more manageable. But here, what Mark just did is it disabled client-side scaling. This is to show you the difference between the number of pixels sent over the network and the actual pixels that you see. But if it's downscaled client-side, you won't notice much of a difference. But when we sit in full pixel resolution, think about those pixels are all sent over the network. This is why it makes so much of a difference.
Yeah, and it's very powerful. I mean, and that's why we've got, a screen real estate that everyone can adaptively use and have, a great experience here in Remote Desktop Manager. And one other thing quickly that we can show at the same time here is the ability to undock the session. So directly in the right-click menu for the tab, we can just click on undock, and then it went on my other screen here. Let's bring it back. And so with that, we can just embed that, have it undocked window with Remote Desktop Manager, or something else that we can do as well, which is a full screen experience here. So let's try again here, just so people can actually see this in Remote Desktop Manager. So if you want to have the full screen real estate experience, and again, a reminder here that the auto typing function can be used. So we type in credentials and then we go into the session. So here, full screen, we get here again on my other screen, but let's pass it over to the other one. It seems that it has taken my other screen.
It's full screen and the screen that you don't see.
Yes.
You have to believe us that it's...
indeed, it's the demo gods. They said no today. So the next one, Mark? low resolution?
Yeah, show low resolution. Because right now what we've done is we've connected with the Apple adaptive codec with full native pixel resolution. But here we're going to connect with the perceived resolution being downscaled server side.
Yeah. And so again, very nice little feature here, having this auto
Especially
typing.
since for some reason today it keeps like logging you out.
Oh, yes.
But
So,
if you toggle client-side scaling, you'll see that there isn't that much of a difference now. It's much smaller. Why is that? It's because it's been downscaled server-side.
Yeah.
So maybe you haven't noticed the difference with the other connection, but now we're sending a lot fewer pixels, like almost 25% fewer pixels, but it is also combined with the Apple adaptive codec. So it's using two things which make performance a lot better than standard VNC.
Yeah, and if we go just seeing that basically with the smoothness of the window, we can see this actually going pretty fast. Maybe a little laggier over Hopin, but on my screen it's just very smooth in terms of performance. And zlib, maybe we can show that as well.
Yes, let's compare with zlib. So low resolution with zlib, 32.
Yeah, the 32 BP, yeah.
So what we'll see here is the exact same resolution with the zlib codec, which does not use the progressive JPEG codec.
Oh, it looks a lot more.
Now try moving the window around. Yeah.
Oof.
You see, this makes a huge difference. You see how it's, well, it's still fast. Let's be honest, it's still fast, but it's not as fast as the adaptive codec.
There's much more latency.
There's much more, because it's spending all that time sending all the pixel information, with all quality information for each of those frames. While with the adaptive codec, it would actually just, won't bother, it would just send the first pass, skip the second pass until you're done moving the window around.
Yeah, and perhaps the high resolution as well.
We'll see, it will be much more pronounced.
It's
We'll show you what happens with standard VNC actually. So if we connect with the zlib codec with the full pixel resolution, this is closer to what you will experience normally.
But this is a lot more. This is a lot slower. I think it's. Even if I type password, it doesn't seem to be.
Maybe it's not focused. It wasn't focused then.
Did it type it twice? Yeah, I think it typed it twice. Yep. So let's try this again.
Do you know anybody at Apple who would very much like if they could add a server-side message for this? It will be much simpler.
There we go. So yeah, definitely. I mean, we can see it right now how much
drag the window
it's. So now a bit. It takes more time to catch in.
Actually, there's a very interesting thing about that. The Apple Remote Desktop Protocol doesn't have a way to temper down or slow down the sending of graphical updates. And it can be quite expensive to decode. So on mobile, we've had a lot of trouble originally because it was sending so much updates, much faster than the network level than the phone could actually decode. But you cannot skip frames.
Yeah.
So if we didn't do it right with no optimization and everything, we could end up like with seconds of delay, but seconds of decoding delay in that case. But on modern PCs and laptops and everything, you never see that. But the reason why it's so smooth is because it's actually catching up on graphical updates after the initial sluggishness.
So, I mean, with what you saw in the beginning, and we'll go back to that, I mean, the integration that we've made is definitely, I think, the most powerful one, if we compare again to the zlib library or even again the native tools from Apple Remote Desktop, their ARD client. I mean, it's nowhere near what we can offer with Remote Desktop Manager. And again, not to forget here, at no additional cost, it's completely free in Remote Desktop Manager. That's very important to remember. And so
this makes me think there was a thread on Reddit about a user confused why we had better performance than the Apple Remote Desktop Client from Apple. And the reason for that is probably because we do not support the macOS Sonoma high performance codec, which is completely different from this one. This one is the Apple Remote Desktop codec, which has been known for like a decade or so. It's actually quite good. There's no reason to really switch it, but with macOS Sonoma, they ended up with this new codec, just completely revamped, has nothing to do with this one. But in this case, the user, I guess that the new high-performance codec was not delivering performance at all. It was actually degrading performance, which led to this weird situation where we were performing better than the first-party clients.
Yeah, and now in Apple Remote Desktop in RDM, again, key functions that we mentioned earlier. Let's start with the view only mode. So basically just little I here at the top, it says view only. I don't know if it's small for people that are looking right now, but if you can see this little I at the top left in the session toolbar, we see view only. So when you click on that, when I click in the session now, nothing happens. So if I just want to have this as a way to monitor things in the session, that will be an option for you for that. And a little extra in Remote Desktop Manager is our thumbnails view, which is the sort of monitoring window in Remote Desktop Manager that we've built. So if we've got some people here that have been familiar in the past with other tools like RDC Manager had a function very similar to that, which gives you a monitoring window. So we have the same thing in RDM, and you can basically have all of them here in a thumbnails view, and you can just double click and it gets you to your session running in tabbed within Remote Desktop Manager. So again, very great function here. One other thing as well, which is very important here, is the clipboard. Losing my words here. Clipboard in the Apple Remote Desktop Client. So what I have basically here that I'm going to do on my Windows machine, you're not seeing this right now because I'm doing a little trick of magic on my other screen that we're not seeing, but I'm copying text from that and just pasting it into the ARD client here. So we have clipboard support from your device to the remote Apple device going in. And the last thing here of a pretty powerful function as well that we've added in Remote Desktop Manager, the curtain mode. So now if we can see on our screen, did I lose my screen? It's very fragile. Oh, there it's back. There must be some squirrel running in this adapter. So yeah, the curtain mode with the client here, there's a little lock here at the top. It says lock screen. If you all can see again, when you click on this, we get this displayed message on lock screen. So what I'm going to type here is to say locked remotely. And now, Nicholas, if we can see on the screen. So when I click on OK on the earlier message you saw, we'll now see that it's locked on the client. And so we see by who? By the user itself, logged in. And so I can just click back. You're not seeing this again, but I can click back on the same lock in the toolbar, in the session toolbar, and it says unlock screen, and then it brings back the Mac screen.
That thing you saw is actually the display from the Mac that we have here. The important thing to know about the curtain mode is it actually prevents any kind of physical usage of the device while you're remotely locked. So if you have a Mac standing in a server room or somewhere that you're running it 24/7, and you just want to connect and do some administration to it, but you don't want someone passing by just like use a keyboard and mouse and use your session with administrative credentials, you can use the curtain mode for that. Funny story about the curtain mode. When I originally did the work of reversing, I reverse engineered the message to lock the device remotely before I reverse engineered the message to unlock it remotely. Problem is, it will ignore literally all physical input on the device. So I was like, oh, how do I unlock it? I could not even force shut down it. So I had to make the work to send the message to unlock it remotely. Otherwise, I guess I would have waited until the battery died out or something like that to force it to reboot. So.
Well, I mean, that would have made the most secure device on the planet right now.
Yeah, so they weren't kidding about that lock on the display. It's truly locked.
Well, I mean, great story, Mark. Thanks so much for sharing that. I mean, and that's the beauty here at Devolutions. It's all of these adventures we go on to really make a difference in the lives of and the work of individuals like you today watching, because there is a lot of chaos in IT. And, we know that Apple has a different ecosystem. It's not always easy to work with, especially in terms of IT admins. We've seen that. We see it a lot on Reddit. So if we can provide at least a tool to make management a lot easier for you when you connect to these machines, well, that's mission accomplished for you and mission accomplished for us. And so that's the result today. And last thing, yes, the grayscale, indeed.
Because Mark had the idea of showing the monitoring mode with the thumbnails and everything. But if you want to watch a lot of different Macs, we only have like one Mac on display right now. But you could use like the lower quality modes that are very ugly, but still show the information.
Yes.
So here is Apple Remote Desktop in grayscale mode. But my favorite one is the 1BPP one, which is literally 1 bit per pixel, and it's very ugly, but super efficient.
Yeah, the last one indeed. So if we see just that, just the screen here, because I mean it's amazing what the things we can do with the codecs here. But I think that one is probably over the top. Let's see here, black and white, people, brace yourselves.
Did it go to sleep in between?
Indeed, brace yourselves.
Yeah, sorry.
Let's see if we can get it back. Oh, wow. So, my God, it's...
But it works.
Hey,
you can still monitor what's going on.
Isn't that... It looks like Blair Witch Project.
Since this is just another connection in the Remote Desktop Manager, you can actually use session recording. So you can record that to videos.
Yeah.
We won't demo it right away, but it's a feature that we have, so you can have it to do local recording to WebM files.
Yeah.
But another thing we haven't discussed yet is you can also use those type of connections through Devolutions Gateway, which is another one of our products that makes accessing remote resources behind a firewall and everything much simpler. So in the case of RDP, you can just point it to a Devolutions Gateway, make your RDP connection go through it. You can also do the same thing for Apple Remote Desktop and SSH and BNC and everything else, but we support Apple Remote Desktop as well. And with Gateway, you can make the connection go through it. You can also do the recording on that same Devolutions Gateway. If you want to monitor a lot of Macs, well, we have the tools for that. You can make, if you're interested or super interested to learning more about your potential use cases that you see if you have to administer a lot of Macs, what can we do to complement that in Remote Desktop Manager?
Yeah, and that's where the exciting thing occurs here is that we can show you what Mark was saying, the web client for Apple Remote Desktop. And it offers a clientless experience. From a web interface, it runs entirely in your browser. Basically all the major browsers, right, Mark? Today I'm on Firefox, but of course if you go on Chrome or if you go on Edge or any Chromium-based browser, I think it wouldn't be a problem here. So clicking on Open in Web Client, we then get access to one other Mac that we have here, because we have a few. And so we have here that experience directly on the web.
Something very important about that.
Yeah.
If you've heard of Apache Guacamole, or if you've used Apache Guacamole to access a Mac, it will work. But with the zlib codec, with 32BPP, and all of the things we just said about why it's not as efficient as all of the other modes that we support with the proper Apple Remote Desktop client, which is why it's so sluggish if you try to move Windows around. We have a full web client, and unlike Apache Guacamole, the client is truly inside the browser. So when you go through Devolutions Gateway, it's only a network connection that goes through Devolutions Gateway. You get a full ARD client ported to WebAssembly to run in your browser. So we've rebuilt that entire ARD stack in Rust, so we could have it ported to the browser just for you. Again, Apache Guacamole, this is often a pain point that people have. It's like, yes, it worked, but I wish it was much faster. It can be much faster if you switch to using Devolutions Gateway in our web clients instead.
Yeah, and you mentioned something very interesting here. For those that may understand is the use of Rust in our implementation here, and that's something of a business-wide effort that we're making right now, is to have as much Rust as possible, because of the fact that C and C++, which are the legacy coding stuff, which is not secure. And that's another thing here that we can mention is that, with all the work we do and all the things that are implemented, security goes at the forefront. And we have to say here, security now in 2025 has to be taken for granted, because if it's not there, then it's mission failure. And so using Rust, using the power of Remote Desktop Manager, even just a free edition. Again, we don't talk about necessarily with the team edition here, but just a free edition with the encryption, with all the other mechanisms you can put in place, it makes the use of all of these technologies more secure. And now you can only imagine what we can do with the team edition when it comes to permission management, advanced session recording, injecting credentials and never seeing the password. So your people will never see the password. And that applies to app or remote desktop sessions. Perhaps a more edge case scenario here is educators that would have devices within their environment. They need to connect to that, and perhaps they're sharing that with individuals that may not have access to all of these machines or shouldn't see perhaps the most sensitive thing, which is the password. So the use of Remote Desktop Manager, we inject that and they never see the password with our team edition. So a lot of information here, Mark, today. Yep. Thank you so much again for taking the time, for sharing all of this with our users here. So now, before we move on, perhaps a little time for some questions, if some people have any, for Apple Remote Desktop, or maybe even if somebody gets something on top of their mind.
If there are no questions, we'll go to feature requests. So it's your chance to make a feature request directly to the right people.
Yeah, feature requests, Mark, very important, because that's the bread and butter of our business and our organization. It's what makes Remote Desktop Manager great, and that's what allows us to make RDM even more successful and our ecosystem of products more successful. The feature requests, very important, because this drives innovation. So yeah, do we have no questions so far? Perhaps someone would like to type in something, ask any questions?
Well, if you're too shy to ask the questions right now and you have a question later, the best place to ask for questions, feature requests, or anything is on our forum. So just go to the Devolutions forum. If maybe you're not a Devolutions user right now, so he's like, why would I register for yet another forum? We use the forum heavily, so you have my word. Taking the time to create yet another account to post on the user forum is totally worth it. In this case, we respond to it. You actually get replies directly from the developers. So with other companies, maybe you're like, I don't want to waste some time trying to do this because I don't even know if the message is going through. But we use the forums heavily for interaction between the devs and directly the users of our products. Even if you don't pay for it, we will take the time to answer your questions. Do not worry about that.
And I want to add to this, yourself, Mark, you answer a lot of things on our forum, and even our CEO, David, answers a lot of questions. So openness and transparency is one of the key values here, pillar values of Devolutions. And again, your feedback has the most impact. It doesn't go out. You just have this chance here.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would like to answer it.
Yeah.
So you are an MSP. Is it possible to have multiple gateway servers? Yes. Actually, you're encouraged to deploy one gateway per remote site or network segment. We've heard of deployments of like several hundred gateways in a while. And usually when it's several hundred gateways, it's usually for MSPs because they have a lot of different network sites to reach. So a gateway is much nicer to deploy than maintaining a VPN. Gateway is also open source and written entirely in Rust. So if you're tired of those VPN CVEs that keep like popping up every single week, well, we don't even have one yet. Gateway, it's entirely written in Rust. It doesn't mean that it's fully secure by design just because it's Rust. It just means that it eliminates a wide variety of memory safety issues. So we've designed it to be like totally robust and possible to expose directly on the internet. And the way it works, if we are going to go a bit into more details, is it uses a pre-authenticated tokens. So if you deploy Devolutions Gateway, you will need to use it with Devolution Server, with your user. And in this case, when a new connection happens, like the web connection you just saw, the client will request a token for the new session from Devolution Server. And this token is then sent to Devolutions Gateway to authorize that connection to the device which is behind it. So you cannot brute force a gateway. You can only present it with a valid token, which has been signed by a central authority, like Devolutions server in this case.
Yeah, very good stuff. Thanks for the question, James. Do we have anything else? Any other questions?
Maybe one comment.
Yeah.
What I just described is like the full integration of Devolutions gateway into our different products.
Yeah.
But if you just want to see the web client in action, you can go right now and download Devolutions gateway. There's a free tier for it, and the free tier is very simple. We just package Devolutions gateway for the network level access with the web client front ends in a very simple interface where you just enter username, password. You can then access it, then you type the host name, destination, username, password, and the protocol to connect to. And then you can see RDP, you can see VNC or Apple Remote Desktop in action. It's just, think of it as the same thing as MSTSC, but for the web and multi-protocol. So you just type in where you want to connect and you go through it. But if you want to do like the credential injection and have security and all those features and session sharing, it's all in the full product suite of Devolutions. Are there any plans to increase efficiencies for DVLS gateway connections? Did you hit the limit on what we could do? Because we're already quite efficient. We can handle a lot of concurrent connections. It's especially a lot faster than with other solutions like Apache Guacamole, just by the fact that Gateway works at the network level and not like Guacamole, which would receive a connection and make another connection using a VNC client or RDP client, decode those images, and then send them back to the client. So only the network traffic needs to go through the Devolutions gateway, which is why it can scale up to so many instances. If you have very high requirements, you can deploy gateway farms. So you can make the gateways work together. So if you have a choke point, like you have a lot of connections that need to go through that specific network segment, I think the largest gateway farm deployment we've seen was like 17 gateway farms. And then we'll pick one of the 17 gateways to make the connection. So you can scale that horizontally before if scaling vertically does not fit your needs, you can go both ways. And we'll just spread out the load between those. Yes, we still recommend 75, but that's just a recommendation. You can push it much further. So just try it out. It can actually go much beyond that.
Yeah, with the farm, and if I can add this, with the farm that we have documented, you can push that much further with resources as well.
It's just a safe number that we have. The reason why we stick to a safe number is because it's very dependent on the type of connections that you make. So if we didn't put 75, we'd have like people going and like, I opened 75 connections with YouTube open and all of them. It's like, why is it sluggish? It's like, yes, maybe you're pushing it too far. But in reality, if all you do is you move a few windows around, you go for administration, push it much higher up, just try it out. You'll see it can actually be pushed much further. Can you use a VPN with the gateway like Tailscale to make it more secure? Actually, yes, you can. With Tailscale, yes, it should work too. The thing with gateway is the way it is deployed, it does not replace your existing infrastructure. It's deployed in a traditional sense, like closer to the RD gateway if you're more familiar with it. So products like Tailscale or Cloudflare, they will do some kind of phone home with their magical network somewhere in the cloud, and then you can reach it through their network. You can put Tailscale or Cloudflare in front of the gateway, and this will add a second layer of network authentication. So it can be combined with anything else in that sense.
Yeah, and I'll just add here, Mark, for the Tailscale portion, I know that it's on our to-do list to add full native Tailscale support to our Remote Desktop Manager eventually in an update. No date on this. But you can right now use what we've added recently in our major release, which is called the custom VPN, custom PowerShell VPN. I'll just add a little bit more detail here, and I'll send a link over in the chat here so that you can all see that. Actually, I don't have it open. But the custom PowerShell VPN would be at least a workaround to make it work to use Tailscale.
It's more than a workaround. It's actually a very nice feature that people like. We just made it much more extensible. So a lot of connections different types of connections. Like people over the years, like they've asked, like, I need to open this VPN XYZ before launching this specific connection. You can create a VPN entry in Remote Desktop Manager that opens your VPN, and you can make it a dependency of your client. So the client, when you launch that new connection, it will actually take care of opening that VPN. And if that VPN is already launched, well, it won't launch it a second time. It will just make sure that it's actually still open as you launch a new connection. This is how the Tailscale integration can be done. But if you have your own custom VPN solution that is not directly integrated, we now have the ability to make a partial VPN. And what the partial VPN is, you just paste in a partial code snippet that launches your VPN client. And then there's several ways that this PowerShell script can accept credentials from a credential entry in Remote Desktop Manager, such that you can inject that into your VPN command to launch it. Like products like Tailscale or Cloudflare, they have these modes where you need, for instance, Cloudflare Warp or the Tailscale client installed on the desktop before you can make this happen. This is something that you could like call into it or make sure it's running before you launch the connection.
Yeah, and Cloudflare as well is also coming into Remote Desktop Manager and probably sometime this summer from development. This is a longer question that we see here.
Yeah, so is there a way to create a session that connects from RDM on my Mac to a local work laptop and have that Windows session join the corporate network over VPN so that traffic on the work even I'm getting a bit lost in the question. Oh. Can you maybe rephrase that as I'm trying to understand it? But okay, maybe I'm getting completely wrong. Are you trying to say that is it possible to have like different connections go through different VPNs? Maybe that is the question, or different network paths. Like if I open a VPN, the first thing I dislike about opening a VPN is it tends to route all traffic through it. If that's the case, I'm just going to assume that maybe it's the case, or even if that's an interesting question. This is one of the things that we like the most about Devolutions Gateway is that you don't need to open a VPN client on your client. Everything is adapted such that the protocol client, for instance, the ARD client, the RDP client, the VNC client, the SSH client, the PowerShell client, the web client, all clients, they've been adapted in Remote Desktop Manager to modify the connection sequence to go through Devolutions Gateway. So there is no VPN client at all to open. You just need to use one of our clients, Remote Desktop Manager or the web clients, to make the connections happen through Devolutions Gateway. This is also the reason why it can be easily combined with other VPN solutions because it's not really a VPN. It's closer to a very elaborate SOCKS proxy that has proper authentication, if you understand the main difference. A VPN will get you a network interface into another network at the operating system level, while Gateway works more at the application level, modify the connection sequence to go through a different network path.
All right, yeah. Thanks for the question, Sam. A very good one. A lot of possibilities in Remote Desktop Manager, Mark, and thank you so much for all of the feedback providing here. So, great session, great info. We hope you enjoyed it. Perhaps a single copy for free then.
We just made modifications to what is included in the free edition. I encourage you to go onto the website or contact says it's just been modified.
Yeah, it's just been modified. I think
there is a free tier.
There is a free tier.
Actually, if you Google Devolutions free tier, I think we have a page for the free tier. Which will send you that link, I'm sure. But there is a free tier for Gateway with the other products.
Yeah, and it's perhaps to mention here as well, Mark, unless you mentioned it and I missed that, a Gateway standalone instance can also be used if you want to just launch connections, Apple Remote Desktop.
Yeah, this is what I described earlier. So if you just want to see the web clients with Gateway and nothing else from the rest of the products, if you just go and download and install Devolutions Gateway, the Windows version of it, you will end up with a standalone web access mode in which you can just enter the host username, password, select the protocol, and then connect. But if you want to have like a free tier of the gateway integrated to the rest of the Devolutions products, which is where you see like most of what it can actually do with the security features and everything. There is a free tier. Just go and Google free tier Devolutions. You will see what's included into it. It should be a certain number of sessions, I think. A certain number of users actually can use
Number
it.
of users,
Yeah,
that's
it's
right.
not one gateway. It's actually a number of users now because we switched to user-based pricing recently. RDM now allows integration of Azure Virtual Desktop. That's a very good question. And I need you guys to be ambassadors of we need third-party integration.
Pandora's box.
Yeah, sorry about that, because maybe you've seen the announcement about the MSRDC deprecation.
Yeah.
And I've had a call last week with the people behind the deprecation announcement, telling them that, yes, we exist and people actually want this, but they didn't really know that. So we need people like you to go and tell them that. So if you go and Google MSRDC deprecation, go and comment on that. You'll see I've already commented heavily on it. And I've been trying to get Microsoft to understand they should officially support it. We do not support it in web clients. We do not support it in FreeRDP or in RDP. We only have some limited support with MSRDC, which is the Azure Virtual Desktop Client from Microsoft, available as an MSI installer. But even then, it's an unofficial integration. I developed MSRDPX, which is some sort of API hooking framework for the RDP client for Microsoft, to open the doors in Microsoft's client so we could actually make it happen. So the only way you can make it work today is you can use the original client, log into your account, download the .rdp files, grab them from their temporary caching location, import them into RDM, and then install MSRDC. Select that as your RDP client for that connection entry and send display mode to external. And then it will launch msrdc.exe with that .rdp file for AVD as an external process. And it's not possible to make it work embedded, unfortunately. But this is as far as we could go. If you Google Devolutions MSRDPX on our blog, you will see we've had 1 or 2 blogs about MSRDC integration and what are the advantages, disadvantages. The thing is, Microsoft decided they would deprecate MSRDC in a year from now in favor of Windows app. Problem is, Windows app is only installed within MSIX, and we can no longer call the executable directly. I have a workaround, and I'm hoping we don't have to resort to that, is to copy the files from the Windows app installation folder to a different folder, so we can again call msrdc.exe standalone. But that's not really nice as a solution. Well, the real solution would be that Microsoft understands this is needed, that people want it, and work with us to make it happen in an official manner, not through API hooking.
Yeah, and Windows app being mentioned indeed, Nicholas. It's unfortunately it works better on Mac than it does on Windows.
Yes, because for some reason the Windows app on Windows still cannot connect to Windows directly. It's not even a joke. This is a fully valid English sentence, by the way. But you can use it from macOS. So the Windows app on macOS can connect directly to Windows device. But if you use the Windows app on Windows, all you have is this Windows like, oh, your MS does not set up anything for your work account, so you cannot do anything. So just close this app, it's not going to do anything. But on the macOS version, you can actually go and select like hostname, username, password, and make a direct connection. But on the Windows version, all you can do is connect to Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, or Windows DevBox, but nothing other than that.
Mind-boggling. Do we have anyone from Microsoft here listening?
Probably not. Otherwise, they would know that they should support us officially.
Yeah, indeed.
Another question? Oh, that was the question I answered.
Yeah, that was
with the long answer. Yes.
With the Azure Virtual Desktop, indeed. But at least it's still available for now, Mark. Up until what, next year?
A year from now. So we have a year to find a solution, and we need your help to get your voice heard.
Same for AppStream and Workspaces clients.
I have to admit on this one, I don't really know the answer. Maybe go on our forum and ask about that. I'm not so sure about that one.
Yeah, well, lots of exciting stuff. And thanks so much for the questions. If you have more coming, it's too bad we can't see someone is typing. It would be nice to see if.
In any case, I'd be more than happy to answer your question. You can go on the forum, ask them. Otherwise, you can find me on Blue Sky, awakecoding.com, like my personal handle. So just go and ask me questions there. I will be happy to answer.
Yeah, well, Mark, again, thanks so much for taking the time here today. Lots of great info, and thanks for all the questions and for everyone attending. Oh, there's another one. This is great. No, this is
Usually
great.
connecting through Apple's own screen sharing client by using the Apple ID of the remote user. Is this possible with RDM as well? My answer will be try it out. If it doesn't work, I'd be happy to look into it. And then if it doesn't work, well, I'll just give you steps to help us understand how it works and how we could support it. Maybe it's going to a different authentication mechanism than the default one we have to use, but we can probably figure that out, which one it would be from a working connection to try and make that work on our side. So that will be on the forum again for follow-up on such feature requests if it doesn't work out of the box.
All right. Thanks, Daniel, for this question. And again, thanks everyone for all the questions you've shared. Perhaps to end here, we've talked a lot about Remote Desktop Manager, Apple Remote Desktop, and many things that are possible with Remote Desktop Manager. But if you haven't already seen this, and I'd like to reiterate it for everyone to have, a clear view of our vision for this year, but also for upcoming years, you'll find it in the same place. So I want to share with everyone, our roadmap that we posted on our blog, and if we can see that on the screen now for people to see, David likes to share the organization's vision and the things that will be coming this year, and it's a tradition that has been now for several years. So this is the one that we have for this year, where we outline, the vision of development for the 4 axes of solutions that we offer. So that's mainly workforce password management. We have remote access management. We have remote connection management. And then, of course, the last one is the privilege access management that we do here at Devolutions. And this is our vision for this year, and all the many feature requests as well that you've sent over. We try to put them in. We try to do as much as we can as possible and add this to the year. But software development is whimsical. It's never easy, but it's a great challenge. And that's what makes a Devolution the best and the leaders in terms of workforce, remote access, remote connection, and privilege access management. So again, thank you so much for all of you for joining us. There will be other events like this one, so please stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next one.
Have a good day and have fun using Apple Remote Desktop, and don't hesitate to ask questions and comment. We really like to read those.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.